Welcome to the Specialty Pharmacy Podcast. This Specialty Pharmacy Podcast is a collaboration with the National Association of Specialty Pharmacy, the NASP, and the Pharmacy Podcast Network. The mission of the National Association of Specialty Pharmacy is to improve specialty pharmacy practice by promoting continuing professional education and certification of specialty pharmacists, while advocating for public policies that ensure patient access to specialty medications. As the healthcare industry's leading podcast dedicated to the pharmacy profession, the Pharmacy Podcast Network is proud to bring our listeners the Specialty Pharmacy Podcast in partnership with the NASP.
Welcome to the Specialty Pharmacy Podcast Show, part of the Pharmacy Podcast Network. I'm your host, Christopher Kennedy, and I'm very excited to introduce to you Dr. Kyle Hogarth from the University of Chicago. I felt that it was important to kick off our first official show with one of the rare disease leaders that's actually known on a global stage. And I'll let Dr. Hogarth kind of introduce more about where his expertise lies, and then we'll kind of take off from there. Dr. Hogarth?
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me, Chris. So, look, I'm a pulmonary critical care doctor. I work at the University of Chicago, and a couple of years back, actually, I guess now more than a decade ago, founded a clinic specializing in alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency and became the first clinical resource center for this disease in the state of Illinois, as you know, certified by the Alpha-1 Foundation, and been in this arena for some time now. Involved obviously with patient care and in all aspects of it, diagnostics, and then obviously therapeutics, and doing everything I can to help with my patients who have this complex and rare disease. But of course, like as we always say, it's actually not that rare. It's just that most people are rarely tested for it. But regardless of that, the main reason we're here today, is not so much a education on everything about Alpha-1, but it's about more directed towards the management. And where my involvement with you and with Heritage came in as a byproduct of my frustration as a provider of watching my patients' interaction with specialty pharmacy. And of course, literally the irony is I didn't even get a chance to tell you this, Chris, before we got on. I've spent literally an hour and a half today dealing with just one of my patients who gets immune globulin infusions, and the unbelievable frustration with his specialty pharmacy, the unbelievable frustration of fighting with an insurance company, even though we had it prior authorized. The insurance company, or the specialty provider, has quite literally, the specialty pharmacy, dropped the ball. He is now without product. They let a renewal lapse, and so now we have to go through this process again, and I got a patient not getting treated for his immune deficiency that he has, all because of the gross incompetence of the average specialty pharmacy that I have to deal with as the end user. And I'm not even the patient. Like I'm horribly frustrated and annoyed because I'm knowing what my patient's going through, but I'm not the guy with the disorder, and so absolutely horrible, absolutely unacceptable.
So Dr. Hogarth, your position is unique in the fact that in Alpha-1, for example, I know we just talked about an IVIG patient, but I believe that's a limited distribution product. So there's only a few different manufacturers you work with, correct?
That's correct. For Alpha-1, absolutely.
So, and then within that, but you are able to work with multiple pharmacies just within that segment alone. Is that also correct then?
Well, yes and no. So some of the products have sort of exclusive deals, if you will. And so some of them are only distributed through a specific specialty pharmacy. So you work within the system of the one specialty pharmacy. Some of the other products do work with a wider variety. Not everybody that's out there, but some. And you can at least, I guess, have some say as an end user. Though occasionally you run into a scenario that I may want to work with specialty pharmacy X, but the insurance carrier has a deal with specialty pharmacy Y, and so guess who I'm using, So
sure.
Sometimes I don't always have a lot to say in the matter.
As far as the collaborative care element, I know that you and I have, and I actually read a couple different pieces that you recently wrote, but that disconnect, does it seem to cross all lines of pharmacies? Do some do better in keeping in coordination with you? And is there an area of improvement for everyone across the board? Are there any best practices that you've noticed?
Well, so, I will say this, from my perspective, we can only do better when it comes to what my patients need, and as an end sort of customer from the perspective of the provider, the amount of information that I have available to me. Now, I will say, across the specialty pharmacy spectrum, I've seen the gamut. I've seen examples that I'm not very happy with and not, very pleased, and no longer use them. And then obviously I've seen the opposite, and seen companies like Heritage and others that are, that have basically from the beginning put the patient first and are going to do whatever my patient needs, and have been responsive and have been, they take active feedback and they give me active feedback. They let me get what my patients, or let me see more about what my patients are going through, give me data, flag me if there's a problem.
Yeah.
Now, I will say this, like what's once in a while, in like the field of alpha-1, for example, I've been fortunate that as I've, I kind of have a personal policy, that you get one basically screw up as a company and a provider, meaning like, everybody makes a mistake, whatever, but only one. And after that first one, if it ever happens again, we're done. So there's no 3 strikes. On that second strike, you are out, and you're losing all my business. And the reason you are is, I say my business, but it's not my business. I'm the healthy guy. It's my patients. And so if you can't do your one and only job, which is provide care to my patient and provide information to me so that I can better care for my patient, then what am I paying you for? Of course, I'm not directly paying you, but you are making money, right? And that's, I'm struck by how many specialty pharmacies forget that in reality, they are singularly and solely in the customer service business. Nothing more, nothing less. They do not manufacture. They're not providing a product directly. They are middlemen, to be blunt. And if you can't provide value and service to my patient, and if you can't provide value and service back to me, then why am I using you? And
the story that you shared that really highlighted that for me was you talked about the fact you'll see a patient on day one. You might not see that patient for 6 to 12 more months. And there's a critical communication gap that seems to exist that you've been very instrumental in helping us address. And that's that real-time analytics and data flow.
Exactly. Look, Chris, you just highlighted, and I'm a specialty clinic for a unique disease state. Some of my patients come from fairly far away, so they're not coming on a regular basis because it's an intrusive thing to say drive 2 to 3 hours to come see me, every couple of weeks. Like that's not happening, and it's a weekly treatment. So there is a healthcare provider of some kind coming into my patient's home once a week and gathering information and assessing my patient. Because in fact, frequently I will hear from my patients and they'll say, the person, who examined me today said I didn't sound very good. They told me I should call you. Now there's a great example. A healthcare practitioner of some level of training didn't like what they heard, didn't call me though, didn't notify me, told the patient, hey, you should probably call your doctor. Maybe if someone had actually flagged me and given me some information. But of course, most of the time that doesn't even happen. So you're absolutely right. I will not see this patient again for many months from a medical perspective. And of course, I only see you for that brief period in clinic. But someone is coming to see you every week. And every week is making an assessment of you. And why am I not being given that feedback and that information, the ability to understand what my patient is going through? And if, by the way, you happen to be missing infusions for any number of reasons, why am I not notified? I should be notified immediately. Why, is there something wrong? Are you having side effects? Because, of course, if you are, I want to know. I want to deal with them. You need this therapy. There's no debate about that. So we've got to find a solution. It's, if you're doing it right, and that's where you and I think, really started to interface and work together very well. If you're doing it right, then you are quite literally supposed to be an extension of my clinic. Right. And I've said to people, and then the folks that I've seen, individually, do this well within the confines of their company structure are the ones who realize that they are here to be an integral part of my team taking care of my patients. And, sure. And that's it. The trouble is that happens few and far between. And it's usually just based on an individual who just happens to be, just a kind, caring, compassionate person who, gets it and is trying to truly provide patient care and not just punch in and punch out.
Well said. I mean, that is a lot for, I think, all of the listeners to take in as well. I'm sure that some of us can relate to many of the different elements that you laid out there for us. Let's take a quick pause for a message from one of our sponsors, and then we'll get right back to it right after this short break.
Okay.
Centrex has been leading and guiding the pharmacy industry for over 40 years. A forerunner of innovation and technology, Centrex more than delivers pharmacy software solutions to the ever-expanding complex network of healthcare. The heart of Centrex is dedicated to restoring patient health and promoting patient compliance by the continuation of care through pharmacy management. Centrex brings pharmacy management to a comprehensive level of understanding and precision, unlike anything available in the industry. Centrex new Leaf RX pharmacy management software revolutionizes this opportunity for specialty pharmacy markets. New Leaf RX thinks like a pharmacist and a prescriber at the same time, while also providing the data needed for decisions from every other contributor in the healthcare ecosystem. New Leaf RX will lead to successful outcome-based processes, guaranteed. At the end of the day, Centrex software packages have what every pharmacy has been looking for. New Leaf RX is the next level of pharmacy management systems. For more information and to experience a demo, visit keycentrix.com.
All right, we're back on with Dr. Hogarth, and he's walking us through some feedback for all of those specialty pharmacies and home infusion pharmacies out there. I think it's safe to say that there are some areas for improvement, and I think it's really interesting to have a rare disease physician's perspective. We've spoken a lot within our organization about you, Dr. Hogarth, being that, quote, customer that should be driving a lot of our clinical efforts. And the only way we know how to surround patients with the right resources is to really be in concert with you on a more real-time basis. And so we've invested a lot around data, but really how to capture that, right? So we've talked about quality of life metrics and patient-reported outcome measures, those additional data sets that we could gather for you as a clinician as a value add versus just distributing the drug. In your mind, if you're able to see a patient more inclusively as far as seeing the changes that happen on a quality of life measure or patient-reported outcome measure, is that important to you? And can you use that to better patient care?
Well, it's always important to me. And let's face it, these specialty diseases, if you will, that require specialty pharmacy. I mean, the word special is in there for a reason, right? I mean, I have hundreds of patients that are just, with COPD, for example. And I'm not going to downgrade what it's like to have COPD, but it's also relatively straightforward. Here's a script for an inhaler. Here's some, rehab. Here's your vaccine. You pick it up at your local retail pharmacy. You move on, right? It's sort of patient 101. And that's fine. But when you have something beyond that, you have a more unique disorder, a genetic disorder, or anything that starts to involve a level of care that is not, hey, just go to the corner pharmacy and pick it up and swallow it or inhale it, but now requires a coordinated level of care, usually something, that's infused or injected, et cetera, et cetera. This type of patient requires a higher level of care from everybody, starting with me. That's why there are specialty clinics for people with specialized diseases, because they are unique. And that's why you can't just go to the corner pharmacy, pick up your alpha-1 infusion, and go home and take care of it. You need the specialty pharmacy because they require a level of care that's higher. And I think historically the problem has been the model has focused on, well, we are in the business of distribution and distribution of a, safe and sterile and clean product, which is important. Trust me, I'm not going to downplay how important that is. You bet. But that was kind of it. And the truth is, it's probably partly my profession's fault. We didn't ask for anything better. No one, sort of ever assumed that you could get anything better. And it was sort of we're just lucky that we got this therapy for the disease. And as long as I'm getting it on time, so be it, it's the whole, you get what you ask for. And so, things are changing. And I will tell you, given the amount of money that's involved, as the person who's the prescriber, and then what I tell all of my patients as well, because I very much coach them on what their expectations should be, it's time to see a shift in the specialty pharmacy market. And I think that's where this golden opportunity arrives. And the people that are going to move forward and rise to the top and gather more business, because in the end, this is a business, are the true innovators that put the customer first, which would be the patients and the providers, and realize that they are, without a doubt, a person whose job it is to be an extension of my clinic, providing care to my patients and specialized care, and give me then that information back so that I get a better understanding of what's happening on all those times that I am not seeing this very special patient and all those times that you are every week, for example. So why am I not privy to that information? Why am I not being flagged if there's a change? I mean, goodness gracious, if you're in the hospital and you're being monitored and everything's stable and good, I can see that. I don't get any calls. But if there's something awry, there's an abnormality, depending on the degree of it, I'm either given a message or ultimately I'm even called and paged. Why is this not any different? Again, these are unique, special patients. It's time for the pharmacy to actually be special.
I think that your discussion with Dr. Shaw from Harvard Business School is very insightful as well. And I remember, briefly talking about the pharmacy patient experience, the RxPX initiative, and where that's making this patient experience more of a measurable outcome. For us, it's taking that patient voice and making it tangible so that we are held accountable, right? Dr. Hogarth, you're going to get a vote of confidence or an area of improvement. And it's not coming from the biased provider, us, right, being a heritage in the scenario, but the patient themselves, them having a vote or an Amazon star report, if you will, where they get to rank services. Do you think that's where we're headed? And would you be in the thumbs up category for seeing such a thing?
I would. Well, think about it. So, I get assessed for quality. I have various metrics that I have to meet, and from my hospital's perspective on, and there's ways that get measured on, how delayed is he? How long does it take to get in to see him in clinic? Et cetera, et cetera. Why aren't we measuring quality here? And the thing is, what really strikes me is in like, for example, in the Alpha 1 world, there's a lot of products on the market. There's a lot of different manufacturers, and there's a lot of different specialty pharmacies. And it can get, quite literally for the average patient, a little confusing, figuring out, wait, what company makes which brand of what through who? I get why people can get a little bogged down. And what's ultimately important here is when you leave my clinic and you're going home on whatever product through whatever specialty pharmacy, from a patient's perspective, it's all one and the same. That product, the specialty pharmacy is sort of an extension of that product, of that company. So, what strikes me is why this, quality initiative is so important and so patient-centric, and why I would assume the manufacturers would be even more interested, is that it's going to become very obvious to them that the care being provided at home by specialty pharmacy is being viewed as the patient as an extension of their brand. And, last time I've checked, every company on earth is pretty darn protective of their brand. And if my brand is being negatively influenced by something that historically I've not felt like I've had any control over, I think you're going to start to see a lot of exertion of control by by the manufacturers demanding a higher quality from their specialty pharmacists for their patients. Because I will tell you, the patient community is very organized. And once you show someone even remotely a better way, word spreads real quickly. And
so are you saying that you
can quantify this? So
are you saying, as we summarize things up here, are you saying that the quote napkin story that you once shared with me, can you give just a highlight of what that was? Are you saying that in fact needs to be replaced with this newer way?
Oh, you mean when I get a handwritten in cursive, can't read it, monthly, occasionally when it seems to show up, faxed report of how one of my patients is doing, versus a digitally integrated, updated constantly ability to see what's going on with my patient. I can make queries and then get reviews and assessments of my patient. Is that what you wanted me to expand on?
I say it kind of tongue in cheek, but I do know this. I know that when I first re-engaged you, Dr. Hogarth, and talking about a kind of a broken model, I think most of us assume there's no way that was still going on in today's market. And the true reality is that it's a lot more common than we think, especially with somebody as well established as yourself. And I think that you exposing this and demanding more on the clinical, collaborative model, I think bodes well for patients. So I can tell you, being from a family that has multiple patients in it, and I think we've all been a patient at some point, I'm very grateful for folks like yourself that will go out there and say, hey, there's some areas of improvement. And I think as a specialty pharmacy industry, we are very receptive to both critical feedback and then also some of the best practices that we can all share. So thank you for your time. And as always, we look forward to keeping in touch with you and also learning from you on different fronts. And I'd like to thank our listeners also for joining us on this first official pharmacy podcast. I'm sure we'll be knocking on Dr. Hogarth's door again, and hopefully in a few months you'll be able to share some success stories that he's witnessed firsthand and experienced as a practitioner. Some of us rally around and try and deliver even better clinical care for his patients. So thank you, Dr. Hogarth.
Hey, Chris, thanks so much, buddy. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Take care, and we will talk to you soon. Cheers.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Specialty Pharmacy Podcast. Be sure to share this podcast with your fellow pharmacists, doctors, and healthcare providers dedicated to optimal patient care. If you have ideas for future episode topics, please email the Pharmacy Podcast Network. Send your message to publisher@pharmacypodcast.com.